from News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoint.
A beautiful Veterans Day Wednesday here in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Great to have you with us today. The debate stage was a little less crowded as Republican candidates faced off in the fourth encounter of the GOP primary contest. But that didn't stop the fireworks inside or outside the venue. Analysis in studio in a moment. But first, senior political reporter Scott Thuman in Milwaukee with our report.
Hillary and the Democrats.
Hillary Clinton.
They're doing high fives in the Clinton campaign right now.
Republican rivals vowed to rally against the Democratic frontrunner instead of each other.
She is the real adversary tonight, and we better stay focused as Republicans on her.
That is, until the topic of immigration arose.
We can't ship 11 million people out of this country. Children would be terrified, and it will not work. To send them back 500,000 a month is just not possible.
And as the economy and national security took center stage, the hits against Trump kept coming.
It's a deal that was designed for China to come in, as they always do, through the back door.
We might want to point out China's not part of this deal.
And coming.
So Mr. Trump ought to know that we should not speak to people from a position of weakness. One of the reasons I've said that I would not be talking to Vladimir Putin right now, although I have met him as well, not in a green room for a show, but in a private meeting.
Ohio Governor John Kasich, trying to break into the top 5, seized the moment to tout his economic record.
I've done it twice. I'll do it thrice for the United States of America.
While co-frontrunner Ben Carson used the moment to address his ongoing spat with the media.
I have no problem with being vetted. What I do have a problem with is being lied about.
If there was one winner Tuesday night, perhaps it was the audience who had been demanding less back and forth and more substantive talk instead, focusing on the American economy and job growth. Saw a heavy dose of that here in Milwaukee. I'm Scott Thuman, News Channel 8.
Scott, thank you so much. And joining us now, political analyst David Mark, the author of Dog Whistles, Walkbacks, and Washington Handshakes, and Craig Shirley, the author most recently of Last Act, The Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Welcome to you both. Great to have you here. Your big picture takeaway from last night. Each of these debates, Craig, seems to have its own persona or personality, flavor, if you will.
Right.
As you watched, what did you see?
I saw a debate that really was what it was supposed to be about, which was about economics. I think that this was probably the best debate of all in that it was the most substantive. My takeaway would be that Jeb Bush didn't do so well. Kasich also. Trump did very well. Carly Fiorina did well, and Ted Cruz did very well. At least they came away with one memorable sentence or phrase or idea or signature issue. Trump on trade, Cruz on the big banks, and Carly Fiorina on the IRS. So that's what you remember. You know, if you can come away with a debate with one memorable thought, one favorable, memorable thought, then you're ahead of the game.
Each candidate, each of the men and Carly Fiorina had a moment where it felt like they were on the gas, where they were scoring points, where they had inserted themselves, and I don't mean that to sound negative. But where they were being assertive in how they tackled whatever the issue of the moment was.
Yes, yeah. I think most of the candidates, not all of them obviously, but they all moved the ball down the field to some degree last night.
David, Mark, what were your big takeaways?
Well, I agree with Craig, and I think just having 8 participants on the debate stage made a big difference rather than the 10 or 11 that we've seen in previous contests. The rebuttals were, I believe, 90 seconds long versus 60 seconds. And
David, sorry to interrupt. I apologize for interrupting. We want to take you now to Arlington National Cemetery, where on this Veterans Day, President Obama is taking part in a wreath-laying ceremony.
Present! Oath!
The Commander-in-Chief at Arlington National Cemetery with a simple but very powerful ceremony, an Arlington tradition, as the President pays tribute to those who have served their nation in uniform. Live coverage for you on this Veterans Day 2015 as some of the dignitaries joining the President for today's event begin to file out. Happy to bring you that, a very simple but powerful moment. Back now to our discussion here in the studio with David Mark and Craig Shirley, talking about the politics of the moment and the debate last night in Milwaukee. David, I interrupted you as you were talking. Your sense of how it went, who moved the needle and who perhaps didn't.
Well, I'm just going to say that's kind of a reminder of what's at stake in this debate. Sure. The next commander-in-chief, whoever that is, one of the 8 or 12 people on the debate stages last night are on the 3 on the Democratic side, and that's really what they're working for, to kind of stand out in the crowd. And if there was one winner, the person who I thought emerged last night was Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, who was known for his debating skills. He's a former Supreme Court clerk, champion debater at Princeton, Harvard Law School. He had okay performances the first couple times out. Last night, I thought, as Craig said, he was really on his game, going after the big banks, also bringing up what might seem like a kind of obscure issue about the Federal Reserve and its monetary policies, but that actually plays to an important part of the Republican primary electorate, which, interestingly enough, kind of goes on with what some of Bernie Sanders has been saying on the other side of the spectrum. So a long way of saying I thought Ted Cruz did pretty well. Marco Rubio held his own. Jeb Bush did what he needed to do to stay in the game, but no standout performance.
There was less, on the part of the moderators, there was less overt, there were fewer overt attempts to create skirmishes, to create moments, to create battle. Bickering. Yeah. Where I would think of it as battling. I mean, the idea is where there are differences, draw them out. You think, you're an isolationist, you're a hawk. Talk with us about why each of you feels as you do. I don't think that's bickering. I think that's trying to draw out where the contrasts are, and sometimes that's a little more difficult to do in a primary where people are of the same party. But in a way, less turned out to be more because we did get those substantive moments without the moderators having to really make a big laborious push.
Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Is that with the first 3 debates, the immediate story afterward was about the moderators and their questions of the candidates, right? Is it Megyn Kelly or a fellow from CNBC? The immediate aftermath of this debate is really about the performance of the candidates, which is the way it should be. Is that I think there was, as I said before, I think this was the most substantive debate and therefore probably the most interesting debate. It was less about, what kind of tree would you be if you were a tree, or find something rotten to say about the person to your right or your left.
I would disagree with you on much of that. I thought that the CNN debate and the Fox debate were excellent, and I thought they got really good reviews.
Right.
I wouldn't defend the CNBC debate, mostly because they lost control.
Right.
But I don't, David, I mean, can you comment on the moderator aspect of this?
Yeah, I thought last night the Fox Business News approach to it was very strong, and that it was substantive, and I don't think they were easy questions in any ways in both parts, for the main stage debate and then the undercard. And I thought they stuck to the issues. The problem here is you always have different imperatives. For the networks, the idea is to maximize ratings, make it like an entertainment show, and that's understandable. It's a commercial outfit, whereas the Republican candidates are trying to appeal to those people who actually vote in Republican primaries and caucuses in South Carolina, Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, etc. That's a much smaller group, so you always have clashing sets of interests. And I thought the debate moderators did a pretty good job overall of pulling it together.
Although they were a little passive, there were multiple times where a very specific question was asked, a very pointed, direct question that was seeking a certain type of answer, an answer with a certain level of meat on the bone, if you will. And what we got was the stump speech. And I don't know if it was the rules that prevented the moderators from interrupting or just a choice that they opted not to interrupt. But frequently you got to the end of the candidate's minute and there was nothing said that really answered the question, and they would either do a follow-up and give the person then a second minute, which it seems is rewarding bad behavior, or they just moved on and the issue would have been raised but not answered.
Well, there's one thing we haven't discussed, and that is that this apparently was the first debate where the candidates directly got involved in the negotiations of the parameters of the debate and kind of shunted aside the RNC. And I think maybe that is the reason that this debate came off differently than the previous debates.
Talking with Craig Shirley and David Mark. We'll pause here. We'll take a break. We'll come back, though, with more News Talk right after this.